Hello everyone, let's talk about web page layouts today. This is lecture 3, okay, and in this lecture we're going to talk about, we're going to learn how to build different types of layouts. First of all, we might ask ourselves, okay, what is a layout in the first place? A layout is splitting your content into multiple different sections and then placing them in a user-friendly and easy to read manner. Okay, so what are sections? Okay, sections they kind of semantically define different the different parts of your document. Okay, a document consists of different sections, different chapters, if you wish, and every section or every chapter talks about something relevant to that section, right? So yeah, unlike many books or lecture notes or anything like that, the articles in web pages, we can go and take advantage of these sections. Okay, we can go and make it one dedicated section for a menu. We can make another section for the main article of the page, and the other section for something really interesting, or maybe some advertisement as well, or some photo gallery, for example. So imagine like our web page, similar to what you see on your newspaper. You've got a lot of different columns, and on every column you have set different topics. So, okay, and certain blocks of your newspaper may even contain advertisement as well, right? So we can use the same principle here when we are building a web document. Okay, we have a limited size the screen, and on that screen our job is to include as many useful information in a most attractive and easy to read way. Okay, so the typical layout of any web page might look like this. Of course, nowadays the web pages look slightly different, but okay, this is kind of a classic corporate web page we usually see every time when we go and open maybe some Microsoft page or Oracle page or any company page, okay, or any, let's say, the blog page as well. So, like, look into this particular page. What do we see here? Okay, we're going to see some navigation bar. We're going to see some panels on the right hand, and these panels contain most of the times the categories, the tags, or something that could be useful as you go and read the main content. Or we can go and have some search bar for searching the content inside that particular website, right? So, or other links, okay, links to some other parts of your application. And then you also have the main content. In the main content, you have the title and different like the body of the content, the thumbnail of the content, okay, some photo that describes that particular content, the author, and all that stuff. So you're going to look into this, and then you're going to recognize different pieces of this particular nicely designed web page. Okay. So, but if you would like to build such a layout, okay, how are you gonna start? What do you have to do first? So we need to go and first look into this particular design and then draw its wireframe. Okay. So what is a wireframe? Wireframe is breaking down this particular big design into sections, into blocks. And each block we can go and further break it down until we go and reach the the smallest elements in our page. So let's go and try to do the same thing for this particular for this particular layout. Okay, so so let me go and turn on the pen. So let me just turn it on. I got a pen here. Okay, so how do we go and split this thing into blocks? So we're going to start from the largest, from the biggest blocks, okay? So what are these blocks? So I can see that this entire page is, in fact, can be described with two parts, the left-hand part and the right-hand part, right? So I can go and, let's say, break this one big box into two smaller boxes, okay? So I can go and say this is one. Okay, so this is one box. Let me go and Okay, draw that, and then I can go and draw this guy. So yeah, sorry for my drawing. Okay, so now I got this two different boxes, and I can go and work with these boxes separately. For example, if I want to break this box further into smaller sections, I would rather break it like this, right? So this every panel is just one box here, right? So and here we go is another third box. So, okay, how can I go and split the panel into even smaller boxes? Okay, so I can have one box here and one box for the title of the panel, and the other box for the body of the panel. And same goes here. Okay, I got another box for the title and another box for the body, and so forth. So you can see that, okay, I'm like wireframing, I'm creating different blocks, and within these blocks I'm creating more blocks. Okay, what about this part of the document? Okay, I can have two blocks here. So one is for the navigation menu, right? So one block here and another one for the main part of the web page. Okay, so this one big blocks within this box. So okay, so I got two boxes within this one big box. Okay, so how can I split this box? Okay, obviously every button here is another box, right? Another box. So I can go and continue doing this. Okay, and so forth. So what about this guy? Okay, here I have, again, I can split this into two parts: the heading section of this article and the title section, heading section, and the body section of the article. So I got this one box. Okay, can be regarded as an article, but okay, this article can further be split into heading and the body. So the heading contains the title, right? So I can go and split it into two parts. Let's say the title part and the details part. Let's say these are the details. And okay, the title contains the title, but the details can further be split into the, let's say, the author and the date, the comments, and maybe the full article, something like that. So the body can be split into two parts again. So this text part. So now look, it's not a block. It's just something like this, like one section, okay? So not necessarily that your sections should be in a rectangular shape. They can be shaped like any polygon, if you like. Okay. So and then this particular block is a thumbnail block. So our article contains a thumbnail, and it contains this particular block for text, for the main text. So we can look into this page, and we already kind of break it down to the least, okay, into these kind of blocks here, right? So we can go and call this particular like lines and these blocks as the wireframe of our web document, of our web page. Let's say it's a web page, right? So and based on this wireframe, we can go and start designing the layout of our page, and we're going to look into how we can go and do this, how we can make sure that this, okay, how can we go and even create these boxes in HTML, and how we can make these boxes, okay, line up in this particular way, okay, or line up in that particular way, or line up in this way, okay, or it should be aligned in this way, so where the text is here and the image is here. So we're going to learn all about that. So this is basically what is building the layout of the page is. It's going and creating the wireframe of the design. And obviously, this design can be given to you by some, okay, by the designer, like in this way, in a Photoshop or something like that. So he goes and designs that and gives you this image. So your job as an HTML layout designer to go and split it into smaller parts, and then build a website out of it, okay, the static HTML out of it. So let's go ahead and start learning how we can go and realize this kind of page, or not exactly the same thing, but this kind of page, okay, in this one. Okay, for that, we will need to introduce a new HTML tag that we haven't covered yet. And this particular tag is called a div tag. And div tag is a placeholder, a template, sort of template block element. Okay, so it basically stands for a division, but we're going to use this particular tag to define the sections of our page. So div tag doesn't have any visual, okay, elements, okay, but it can carry a certain semantic meaning. So how can it carry? It carries a semantic meaning. So every div can be attached to a particular class, and we can say that, okay, this div belongs to the shout class, or and so forth. So this defines a block which kind of shouts something, okay, which kind of says some additional information. This block contains, let's say, one particular H2, the title section, and 2 paragraphs, okay? So we can go and denote, provide certain semantic meanings to different blocks of our page using this kind of a placeholder dummy, okay, element, dummy block element for defining the sections of our page, right? So for inline elements, we have again another element which is called span, and this span defines kind of a range within a given text, right? So if div is used to define a block, a section in our page, then span is used to define a range in a given text, right? So if you have a certain range that we'd like to kind of select, and then you apply certain styling rule, CSS rule onto that, we can go and use span for that. Okay, obviously every span, by default span doesn't have any meaning, any visual elements, but you can go and attach a given class to a given span, and then use this class to style sheet to format the selected range of text, okay, or a range of inline elements. Let's just be more general here. A range of inline elements in your HTML document. Okay, so again, we can specify the sections not only by blocks, but it can also specify them within the inline elements as well. So the sections is a more general concept. It's not like just simple boxes, rectangular boxes. It can be specified in your this as well. So we talked about these sections, right? These are also sections, and as you can see, these are inline sections, and we can go and use inline sections as well. Not necessarily everything in this particular layout must be a block section, okay? So there's an inline section as well, and we already know, okay, how can we go and stylize these inline sections using, okay, different elements like span. Okay, so yeah, we talked about this thing in our lab, but let me go and reiterate it again. So we can go and impose the context selectors as well. The context selectors are the selectors which impose certain structural constraints onto the elements that we want to select. So we can go and create a one single selector, okay, out of 2 selectors, let's say. Okay, so one single selector, this is a one big single selector, and selects an element. Okay, so what does this mean is it means that, okay, whichever element I'm selecting here, it must be a descendant of the elements that is selected here. Okay, so and here it means that it has to be the descendant, the child of the elements that is selected using this selector. Okay, so this one this way, like I can go and create a one single selector. This is called a one big selector itself on its own. Okay, so we talked about that. So for example, if I go and write Lee Strong, okay, what I mean is, okay, I want an element strong who has an ancestor Lee. Okay, if I can look into this HTML, okay, this one has a strong, but it doesn't have an ancestor Lee, so it goes away. But this one has an ancestor Lee, so that's why the style actually applies to this guy. So that's why this will be underlined, but it won't. This one will not be underlined. Okay, so this is how I can go and impose certain structural constraints into the elements that I have, right? So a little bit complex example. So what I'm trying to do here is, again, I would like to select element called strong, but it needs to have a certain context, right? So what is its context? Okay, it must be a descendant of this element. Okay, so Lee element with a class name important. But this also needs to be the descendant of this element. Okay, so let's take a look into the HTML here. What do we have? We have, okay, an element with an ID AD. So it must have a Lee with a class name important. So we have such element here. And this must also contain a strong element. Okay, so we got a strong here. So this particular text will, okay, take up this particular, okay, value property. So I can see that this is in fact underlined in my output. Okay, so yeah, so every block element contains, different parts of it. Okay, so we have a content part, and we also have a padding and border and margin. Okay, so when we are calculating the width or the height of a given block, we have to take into account this this particular parts of the every block element. So let's take a look and then try to understand how these parts of the block actually affect the total size of the block. Okay, let me go and illustrate you that particular example. So let me go and create one simple index.html file here, and let me just go and create a basic template. So I'll go and create the styles here. First of all, let me go and define the div. Okay, so I can go and define a div like this using emmet. So let me go and call it block or box. Block, that's it, that's fine. All right, and let me go and put some random text here. Okay, so we'd like to see how this block will change if we go and change its parts. So as I said, every block contains the content section, but in HTML it doesn't look kind of explicitly visible here. But we need to understand that every block that we define like this, not necessarily div, any block element basically contains these 4 parts. Right, let me just to make everything visible, I'll be creating this entire style sheet in this particular file, so you can see how these changes actually affect everything. I'm not going to do it in a separate file, just to make sure we can see everything in one place. Let me go and select this particular block, so I'll do the selection. Now I can go and specify the width. For example, I can say 100 pixels, and then I can also specify the height. Also, let's go and make it 100 pixels. Okay, so let me go and open that particular HTML page in browser. I got Chrome here. Okay, so we can see this block here. Okay, so let me go and see this particular block and its measurements. I can see that this particular block has a width and height of 100. And of course, the text actually exceeds the content of this block. You can see if I go and select that, this is the actual size of that block. Let me go and reduce the text. We'll come back to this point later on when we talk about the other properties, but this is, refresh that. So this is our block, and we can see that it's just a square. In Chrome, you can see that entire box model and it's every part of this particular block here. Okay, so you can see that this block has a padding. At this moment, it doesn't have any padding or border, or it has padding and then border and the margin, but they are basically inherited from the browser's default. Okay, so Yeah, so I can go and see the computed version as well, and every part of it. Okay, let me go and specify some border to it. Okay, so I can go and say border, and the border is is the color of the border first. So I can say, let's say, black border, and then the type. So I want a solid border. I can go and say dash as well, but let's go and say solid, and then the width of the border itself. So now it's 2-pixel solid line with the color black. So let me refresh that. Now I can see that the width of this particular block is not 100, but it also has the border, sorry, the padding, and it has 0 padding right now. You can see that there's no padding, and it's not even highlighted in this one, but it also has the width of the border. So if I want to calculate the width of this box, I need to add up these two. I actually have to multiply these two sides. 2 multiplied by 2 is 4, and the width of this content is 100. So the total width of this box will be, for me, 104. So the width of this particular box is 104. So in CSS, you might think, okay, the width is 100, but no, the actual width will be 104. That's how you're going to calculate that. So I can go and specify the other parts of that particular box. I can go and say padding. So I can specify all 3 parts of the padding. So it starts from the top, and then to the right, and then to the bottom, and then the left. Okay, so I can say, let's say, 1 pixel here, 2 pixel here, 3 pixels here, and then 4 pixel to the left. So let me go and show you that. So now, yeah, the top, the right, okay, and the bottom, and then the left. So it starts like a clock, okay? So it starts from the top, and then it moves in this direction. So I can go and specify just one single value here. If I just specify one single value, then all sides of this block will be set to 4 pixel. So the padding is the space between the content and the border, right? So this padding actually specifies that space, and sometimes it makes our text a little bit readable when we put a little bit of padding between the border and the content. Okay, but now it also changes the width of our box. You can see that it basically contains 2, 4. So I have to multiply these numbers by 2 because I have 2 sides if I want to calculate the width. So it's 4, 8, 4 plus 8, 12, and then the width is going to be 100. So the total width of this particular box is going to be 112. So that's what I need to kind of calculate in my head, back of my head, when I'm just trying to evaluate the size of this particular block. But now that other than the padding, we have the margin part of that particular text. And again, I can go and use the same principle here. By the way, I can set the padding in a different way as well. I can go and provide only 2 values. So in this case, this means the vertical space, and this means the horizontal space. So this specifies the top and the bottom, and this specifies the right and the left sides of the box. So let me go and show you that. So if I do so, you can see here. So I'm saying padding 4 and 2, right? So the top and bottom, the 4 top and bottom parts padding is 4, and the sides are 2 pixels. Okay, I can also change that here. I can see the entire style shown to me in Chrome like that. So let's go and just fix one value here. Maybe I can go and put 10 pixels here just to make it a little bit easier. So then what is margin? So margin is another part of our box model for a given block element. And I can go and set the sizes for the margin in the same way as I do for the padding. So let me go and put 15 pixels here. So I can see that the margin is the space around the border, right? It's a space around the border. So now I got a space around the border, and it has it has the 15 pixels around that particular border. So if I want to calculate the total width of this particular block, then I again have to multiply these three numbers by 2. Okay, so let's go and calculate their sum. So it's going to be what? It's going to be 27. 27 multiplied by 2 is going to be 54. So 54 plus 1, so it's sorry, 100. It's going to be 154. So the width of this particular block is going to be 154. And if I want to go and put another block, I need to take into account that this particular block is going to take this much size. So yeah, you might say, okay, I agree with the top, I can agree with the bottom as well, I agree with the left, but what about the right? I see that the right is getting entirely occupied. Remember, we are working with block elements, and block elements occupy the entire horizontal space, no matter what's the width or height, what's the size of it. Okay, so that is very important part of the block elements. So because this is a block element, okay, and as we know by default, blocks elements occupy the entire horizontal space, this margin sort of gets extended, okay, to the entire space. Okay, so what if I want to, let's say, put this thing into the center? Okay, so I just want to get use of the space for that particular content. I can go and use a simple trick here. Okay, I can go and say set the sides to auto. So if I say auto, let me go and increase the width to 400, and let me go and put more text into it, a little bit more text again, and let's go and make it. I can leave this height unspecified as well. So in this case, it will extend to the size of the content. So then what I will have is some sort of a box like this. Okay, so it's going to be in the middle all the time, and I can write any text into it, and it will get extended as the text inside this particular block changes. Okay, that's one simple trick I can go and use to centralize the blocks horizontally inside given text. Inside given space. So yeah, we talked about this, the different parts of this, the box, and then the way how we can calculate the total width or total height. It also applies to the heights as well this way. So yeah, so we talked about block elements before. Now, when we talk about collection of block elements, we need to take into account the regular flow of these block elements. And as I said, because block elements occupy the entire horizontal space, and if we put two block elements next to each other, then they will be arranged vertically. They will follow, the vertical direction. So it starts from here and it goes in this direction. So let me go and copy paste these two blocks. So you can see that these blocks are in fact kind of placed next to each other, right? So even if the width actually allows them to be in the same line, because yeah, the width of this one is 400 pixels, maybe the size of my screen is something around 2000 pixels, I can actually fit all these four blocks into that horizontal line. But we need to understand that div is a block element. It occupies the entire horizontal space. So if we go and refresh it, anyway, they will follow their original flow from top to the bottom. They will be arranged in this way. Okay, so the document flow, we said it goes to, in this direction, in a vertical direction for block elements. And we also know that in inline elements, they are arranged in a horizontal direction, like the text, or some inline elements like emphasize M, or even the hyperlink or anchor, right? So we can see that some block elements can contain inline elements, right? So the inline elements usually contain inline elements, but block elements can contain both. They can contain, they can contain both block and inline elements together. So, and then you can go and arrange your document if they flow in this direction. Okay, so we talked about the border. So we can go and set the border for your elements. So the border takes first. It can take the width, the thickness, and then the the type of the border, and then the color of the border, right? So we can see here. So yeah, sorry, that it has to be 2 pixels and black here. So we made a small mistake here, but all in all, it works in this way, right? So yeah, so let's go and update that, and as you can see, this is what we have. Okay, so there are many different styles of the border, like for example dashed or double or groove. So for example, if I go and change to dashed, it will be slightly different border. So I can go and set it to dashed and then save it, and then if I go and let's say update it, you can see that the border is now dashed, right? So I can go and change these properties and then create a border the way I want it. Okay, so there are more fine-grained properties for the border as well. So if you want to just set the color of the border, you can use the border color, and the border width will define the thickness of the border, and the border style can go and does the style of the border. But you can also change the style and everything for every side in the border, right? So these properties can be used for that purpose. Okay, so this is another example for the border. You can see, okay, I'm setting different sides of the border to different style, and I can go and do that. This is double, and this is okay the dotted, and then I can go and do different types of borders for my block element. Same goes for the padding. The padding, I can go and set the bottom and different types of the padding. I can use this shorter property for setting all four sides of the padding property. As you can see, we already talked about that. Okay, so the same goes for the margin. And as I said, the margin is the distance between around your border. Okay, so it's like 50 pixels. I can go and specify the margin in different ways. Okay, yeah, I can set the size of that element using width as well, or you can use the relative ones, like 50%. 50% is relative to your current screen size. Okay, so other than that, we have max width and max height. Okay, if you set the max width to some number, okay, this will be the maximum. So even if the screen size allows that particular width, it will not exceed that length. Okay, so usually I specify the max width for blocks, max width. Yeah. So I can go and specify the max width, and I could say, for example, 800, and then the width could be anything. Okay, so this means so my width can extend up to 800 pixels, but if the screen exceeds that, it will not grow further. Okay, so let me go and show you the max width. This is something that we commonly use in developing web pages. So let me refresh that. So for example, this is the text that we have, right? So we can go and decrease its width, but you can see that the width is getting changed now. If the width has a less size, yeah, it will squeeze in. If I go and increase the size, now it's not just going from this line to this line. And it is good because it's now you can see centralized and it's easier to read. Okay, so if your text is really long, it's difficult to read for the user. So what most websites will do is they just put it into the center and then set the max width like this. So this way, it will be easier your text will be centralized, and it will also be kind of responsive to the width of your screen. Okay, So yeah, so we can go and use the auto. We already used auto to centralize the text. Okay, but we can also use other properties like text align to center the inline elements within a given block, right? So this text align actually works for inline elements. If I put another block inside this block, it will not affect that one. Okay, so I can go and show you that. So I can go and say text align. Now I can say, oops, text align, and I can say center here. So it will center the text that I have here. And you can see the text is now not justified, but it is centralized. If I go and put, let's say, another block inside this block, so can I go and do this? Yes. Let me go and create, let's say, another div, call it box, and this box, some box, right? And if I go and say box, and let me go and give a border to this box, let's make it, let's say, 2 pixels, and I make it, say, double, and let's say, can you make it red, something like that. And let's go and set the width to, say, 100 pixels, and height also, say, 100 pixels. Okay, so now this is a box inside another box, right, inside another block. But okay, because I set the text align center, you might expect that this box will also be centralized here, but it won't, because it is a block element, and this text align won't centralize the block. You can see your block, yes, the text within this block is in fact centralized because it inherits it from the parent, but the entire block, this block, is not in the center, right? So we cannot put it into the center, right? So yeah, so if we'd like to put it into the center, so what should we do? Yeah, we have to do the margin. Okay, let's say 15 pixels again, and auto. And if we do so, then we can see that this box is now centralized, and okay, because of the margin auto on 2 sides, it goes and puts this box into the center of this particular block. Okay, so this is how I can go and center the blocks using margin auto. Okay, so vertical align also affects the inline elements. It will not affect the the block elements. Okay, so I can go and set the vertical align property of the container block. Okay, and it will go and change the alignment of the inline elements. Okay, so and this is kind of, I have 4 different values. I have top, middle, bottom, and the baseline. Baseline is this line, okay, that goes through this text. Okay, it's not the bottom of the text. Okay, it goes in this way. Okay, so you can see that there are some letters are sticking out of this baseline, and this is the default value. Okay, so it is best described with some image. Let me go and show you that image. Okay, let me go and put some image here. So let me go and put some image. So let's go and search for some image from the web. So I can go and, let's say, cat. Okay, so I can go and maybe this is a good image. Let me go and copy that URL. So I can go and say image, and then put, oh, it's a huge URL. So I can try to, and okay, that's the URL for that image. Okay, so I'd like to show this image here, right? So I can go give the URL to this image, right? And yeah, and some text next to it. As we know, image is an inline element, right? So yeah, and it's definitely bigger than this character. So let's go and see what is baseline. And you can see that this is the image. Okay, let me go and increase the width of this Okay, or just set the width of this box to, or maybe I'll go and change the width of that image to, let's make it somehow easy to handle. So I can go and set it to height. Let's make it, I don't know, 120 pixels. Yeah, it will be a little bit squeezed and, oh, sorry, this is width. Okay, so this is the style. I can go and set the style this way. Okay, so this particular, let's make it 90 again. 90, and let's make this guy, let's say 200 and 200. So I can go and, yeah. Okay, so I have to apply this to the image, sorry. Yeah. So I have to go and say this is the image, right? So let me go and try that now. Yeah, so I got this image and I got this box, and you can see they are in the baseline. This image is in fact in the same baseline as the text, as this text. Okay, but okay, if I want to change the vertical alignment, what I'm doing is I want to change the location of this text, okay, compared to this image, right? So if I go and say vertical align, I'll say top. Okay, so yeah, sorry, this is yeah, I'm making this one. So go and change the vertical alignment to top, vertical align. Yeah, what could be wrong here? Vertical align, top, yeah, you can say bottom. Did I save it? Okay, so yeah, so we have to apply this to the actual element itself, so we can define the way how it's aligned. So, for example, we want to align this particular inline element vertically. Okay, with respect to the other inline elements. For example, this is the baseline. I would like to change its vertical alignment. So what I need to do is I have to go and use the vertical align. And then, for example, I can say top. So if I say top, so this image will be, this image will be the top of this image will be okay at the same level with the text, right? So I could go and say center, and if I do the center, sorry, not center, middle. If I do the middle. Yeah, if I do the middle, it will be in the middle. Okay, so it will the middle of this image will be at the same level as the text. So I can go and do that kind of tricks here with the vertical alignment of that, okay, of the element. So again, you can see it applies to inline elements. It doesn't apply to this basically shows the examples here. It doesn't apply to the actual blocks. So we're going to talk about how we can go and change the box's alignment. So just to summarize the point. Okay, the containing box's text align property controls the horizontal position of inline elements within it. Okay, so the text align actually applies to the inline elements within it. But each inline inline element can have its own vertical align property, which can decide how it will align itself with respect to the baseline or to the line of the text, which is written in that line. Okay, so that's what we saw here. So the common bug here is with your, so you're wrapping this image with the paragraph and setting its background to, let's say, red, and then let's see, like you set the padding and the margin to 0 pixels. So let me go and do that for you. So I'll just want to show you that particular problem that many developers usually have. So let's go and get rid of this vertical for a sec. Okay, and let me get rid of this text as well. This text as well. Okay, so let me go and define a new, so call it image box. So what I'll do is I'll say background color, let's call it red, and then let me go and set the padding to 0. Or just say 0. You can say margin 0 as well. Okay, and let's rename this to image box. Okay, so this image has the size 90 pixels, 90 pixels. I'm not specifying the size for that block, so it will go and adapt to the size of the image. So let me go and show you that here. So now if you see this kind of thing, you're going to find that there is a small space here. See this space? So you try to find out, okay, what is this space? Is it padding for the image? And you're going to find out that, okay, the image doesn't have any padding, or it doesn't have any margin, right? Or what about the image box? Does it have any padding and image? No, you can see that it doesn't have, and these are 0. You can see all of them is 0, right? So how come we have this small space here? And this small space could kind of look a little bit, okay, not clean to us. So how can we go and fix this? First of all, remember, every inline element is by default aligned to the baseline, and the baseline is here. Okay, so you can see that this part of the letter is sticking out, and this space is in fact this part is for this particular part of the letter. So baseline is not always the bottom. Okay, so if I go and change it vertical align to bottom, then this space will go away, and you can see now it's gone. Okay, it's gone. So now this entire the block will now, its height will be accommodated according to the height of the image. Okay, so that's something that we perhaps want to understand. Okay. So we can always convert block elements to inline elements and inline elements back into block elements. How we can go and do this? We can go and use the display property for that. If we go and set it to display, so what we're going to have is the the H2 element, which is a block element by default, will be converted into inline element. So if we go and write two H1s in a row, so we're going to have them lined up like this, because they will be treated like an inline element. Even if H2 is a block element, it can be converted back into inline element. If you set the value to none, then it won't be displayed. If you set it to block, then any element will become a block element. So you can go and change these elements and their types, from inline to block, or the other way around. The hidden will simply kind of display none, will simply hides the element. So for example, if I want to because we know that lees are block elements. So lee is a block element. I would just want to align them, arrange them, in a horizontal way. All I need to do is I have to select this lee, and then I can set this inline display inline, and this horizontal, vertical inlines will become horizontal. That's how I can go and arrange them this way. So they will be kind of flowing from left to right. So there's another thing, like we talked about sizing, box sizing, and how to calculate the width of a given block, including the border size, the padding, and the margin. And by default, when we are setting the size, we set the size, setting the width and the height, we basically set the height and the width of the content box. Okay, so, but we can change it. If we go and change it, this box sizing to border box, then the width of the block will be measured from border to border, not from the content to content, but from border to border. Let me illustrate you this. Okay, so you remember this is the box I have, right? And it has so it has, let's say it has a padding of 10 pixels, right? So what would be the size, the width of this, sorry, the height, or let's say width of this box without the margin part, okay? Because margin is using the we're centralizing it margin. So without margin, what will be the size of this box? Okay, it will be 200, like, and 2 multiplied by 2, so it will 4 sides, 204 and 20, okay, 224. So that will be 224, the width, right? Total width. Because we're using content width. And we can ensure that from this particular page. So if I go and try that, okay, and if I select this div, okay, so this is the block, yeah, this is the box. So let me go and change it to box. Well, let me go and put the box here. Some text. Let me just save it. So I got this sum box here, right? And if I go and select this box, you can see that its width is the sum of these numbers, right? Okay, but now what I want to do is I would like to calculate the width from this border to this border. Okay, so I don't care about how much value will be left for the content. So how can I go and do this? So I have to say box sizing now and border box. And if I say border box, then the width will be not for the content only, it will be width from the border to border. So the content width will automatically adapt to whichever width you specify. So now you're gonna measure your box, okay, accurately. So you can see that, okay, this total sum of these numbers, okay, 2 plus 10 and this 176, 10, will sum in to 200. Okay, so now I can be sure that, okay, the width of this entire box is in fact 200, okay, pixels. So like border boxing helps me to kind of work with this kind of boxes, okay, with the actual numbers. So when I'm saying box, I usually mean from border to border. I don't mean the content, right? Because then between content there's padding as well and the border size as well. So I don't take these things into account when I'm calculating the width. But if I go and switch to border boxing, okay, this way I can go and measure the boxes as they look. Okay, so from this place to this place. So the same goes for the height as well. It's something that I would use here. Okay, this is just an example of a border boxing. Okay, good. So so let's talk about the actual layout. So we actually discussed about different properties of individual block elements. Okay, we said we could go and change this, the content of these block elements, like the textual inline content, or we can go and change the spacing or border around these elements. But how about building the actual layout? Yes, there are multiple different ways we can go and build the website layout. And the first way and most commonly used way of designing the layout for a web page is using the Flexboxes. So what is a Flexbox? So Flexbox allows us to alter the items, to alter the alignment of items within it. So Flexbox layout gives a container an ability to change the alignment of its items. Okay, so the Flexbox is sometimes referred as the container, and the flex items are the items within this container. So Flexbox basically helps us to expand the items to fill the available free space, or we can go and shrink them to prevent the certain overflows. Okay, so it actually helps us to do a lot of different things and different ways of arranging our items. Okay, so so also Flexbox, good thing about Flexbox is that it is direction agnostic. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't use the words like vertical or horizontal, because I mean everything depends on the orientation of the Flexbox itself, and we're going to talk about that in the next slide. So Flexbox layout is also appropriate for like arranging your components, the repetitive components. Let's say your page has certain repetitive components. It could be like your panels, it could be your navigation buttons, menu items, or it could be like your news feed, your panels on the right hand. Remember, right? So we have these things. They are repeating things, and we just need to go and arrange them. Okay, align them properly according to our layout. So using Flexboxes, we can go and achieve this. So before we get into the actual the way how Flexboxes work, we need to have familiarize ourselves with the terminology that the Flexboxes use. So any div block, any block element can be converted into a flex container. Okay? And I'm going to show you how you can go and convert any block element, not div, but any block element into a flex container. So the flex container is just some sort of a rectangle and can have other blocks within it. Okay, so all these block elements within this container are called flex items. Okay, so any flex container contains three axes. Okay, the main axis and the cross axis. Okay, so you can see that the main axis has a direction, so it comes from left to the right. By default, again, it depends on in which direction you're going and setting the axis for the main axis. And then, okay, if you go and set the direction for the main axis, you can find out the direction for the cross axis. Okay, if your main axis is from left to right, then your cross axis is from top to the bottom. Okay, or you can go and change the main axis direction. Let's say you would like your main axis to be from top to the bottom. Okay, if you go and set the direction of your main axis from top to the bottom, okay, you can go and do this in Flexboxes. Let me go and try that. So if this is, use this one. So if the direction of your main axis, this is your main axis, is from top to the bottom, so then what would be the direction of the cross axis? Then it will be, okay, so you just rotate it like this. This would be your cross axis. So it will be from right to the left, right? So again, if your main axis is pointing from bottom to the top, this is the main axis. So then what would be the direction of your cross axis? Then it will be from left to right. This will be your cross axis, right? And again, if your main axis is pointing in the reverse direction, let's say from right to the left, this is the main. So what would be your cross? Okay, it will be the upside down again. So from bottom to the top, this will be your cross axis. Okay, so whenever you're defining a flex container, you have to indicate the orientation of your main axis. That's what you have to do. You indicate, okay, what is the orientation of your main axis? Is it from left to right, from right to left, from top to the bottom, or from bottom to the top? Okay, and we're going to see this in the next slide, right? So once you specify the orientation of your main axis, the cross axis will align itself on its own. Okay, so the point from which your main axis starts is called the main start, and the point where your main axis ends is called the main end. Okay, so and the same goes for the cross axis. So you can go and kind of designate this position with a concrete name, right? So you have these kind of names here. So, and this is the size of your main axis, and this is the size of your cross size of your flex box. This is the main size and this is the cross size. Note, we are not using these words like width or height. We are not using them. Why we are using main size and cross size? Because remember, I said Flexbox is direction agnostic. We can always change the orientation of this main axis, and if we change the orientation, okay, then okay, the width becomes height and height becomes width and so forth. So this main size and cross size could be okay anywhere. So we're going to use these words instead of width and height because everything depends on how our main axis is aligned. Okay, so let's go to the next slide and we're going to understand how we're going to go and set the the direction of our Flexbox. So first of all, how we can go and convert a given block container, a given block element into a Flexbox, into a Flex container. So we can go and say the display equals to Flex, and this will convert a given block into a Flexbox. Okay. So we can go and use it inline flex. So this will go and convert the inline element into a inline flex. Okay, so but most of the times we're going to use this guy. So this means we can convert any block element into a flex box. So now within this flex box, the next thing we have to specify is the direction of the main axis. Okay, so this means row. Okay, so you can see if you go and set the row, it means from left to right. If you say row reverse, then it is the opposite, so from right to left. Okay, this is the direction of the main axis. Okay, it's not the main axis. The column means from top to the bottom, and then column reverse means the opposite. Okay, so this way we can go and choose different values to define the direction of the main axis. The second property we use is the no wrap or wrap reverse. So what no wrap, wrap, and wrap reverse mean? If you go and say no wrap, then all the elements on this particular block will be kind of adapted to the width of your screen. They will not go to the next line. Okay, so whichever is the size of the container, they will adapt to the size of the container. Okay, so if you go and change the no wrap to wrap, then okay, anything that exceeds will go to the next line, okay, and then continue the flow in this direction. Like an inline elements, these blocks, okay, will kind of follow the same way, okay. Note that these blocks are okay aligned horizontally in this way, so they are not following their natural, okay, natural path. Okay, so the wrap reverse will do the other way, so it will take the blocks not from the end, but it will take it from the beginning. Okay, so if you change the size of the screen, it's okay. The redundant elements will be taken from this side and then moved to the next line. So it will be like this, right? It will continue from this point. So okay, so we can go and specify the direction and the wrap for the flags. Now we can also specify the way how we are going to align our elements across the main axis. Okay, so across the main axis. So the main axis, if the main axis is set to row, then okay, it's going to be horizontal, and then we can go and align the elements in different ways. We can go and set it to flex start, which means the beginning of the main axis. Flex end means end of the flex main axis, and center means in the center. Space between will okay put the first element to the main end, sorry, main start, and the last element to the main end, and it will arrange all the other elements. Okay, so it goes and puts this space in between them. Space around will go and put a little bit space here, space little, but it will go and allocate the anything in between. Okay, so it will go and use a little bit space here and here but anything in between will be evenly distributed. And space evenly will go and use the fixed space, okay, even space on every side of this element, okay? So we can go and do the experiment by this link. Okay, so if you look into this, you're going to go and try out different flex items, okay? So first of all, what I'm doing here is I have a flex container. This flex container, okay, as I said, is set to flex. The next thing that I'm doing is, okay, I'm setting the, so I'm using a shorter version of flex direction and flex right. So let me go and anyway use flex direction. And I can say row, and I can say flex wrap, and I can say wrap. So if I do thing, nothing will change. So you can see I can change, and this goes and converts. So let me go and say flex start here. And the padding and the margin is set to this one. Let me go and take away the list style. It's nothing, it's redundant. Let's take away this one as well. It's redundant for this particular scenario. So now what I have is I have some flex items inside this, okay, window. So these are another divs, and these flex items are just some blocks. The most important thing is I need to go and give the width, give some width to these items. Otherwise, by default, they are going to occupy, okay, the size of the elements. If I go and remove the width, for example, then okay, their size will be dependent on their content. Okay, so I can, depending on whichever content I put, they will adapt that width. Okay, so in order to make this thing kind of uniform, I will go and give a width to them. So let me go and give 100 pixels to the width and height, and then the border and so forth. Okay, so I got these blocks here, and as you can see, they are aligned. So I can go and enumerate them. Let's say 1, so you know which box is what. So you can go and enumerate this. And I can go and say 9 and 10. Right? I got 10 different boxes. Let me go and try this. So now if I go and squeeze my window size, you can see, because I set it to wrap, okay, whichever values that are coming here, they're going here and then starting their journey again from the next line. But I can go and change my values. So what happens if I go and change it to no wrap? So in this case, I'm going to see this, okay? I'm going to see this entire, okay, all the blocks here. But you can see if I go and change the size, their width is also changing. Because I said no wrap, all the elements, they will not go to the next line. They will always be in this line, okay? But there's another way as well, which is called wrap reverse. Okay, so if I go and change it here, you can see that the wrapping is starting, in fact, okay, from these elements. Okay, so these elements are going to the bottom. The end is remaining in the first line. Got it? So I can go and do that one as well, that way as well. So let's keep the wrap now. So what else we have? Okay, I can go and align the things into the center. So I can go and say center. And if I do this, all my elements are in the center. You can see if I change them, they are in the center. Okay? So, and you can see these elements in the new line, they are also getting arranged into the center. Or I can say flex end. If I do so, okay, new elements are, okay, starting from this point. So you can see, so all the elements are getting, okay, arranged in this way. Okay, so it starts from that point, right? So I can go and specify that. But other than that, I have space between as well. So if I say space between, so you can see if I increase the width, okay, if I increase the bit, this space, okay, if they have some free space to move around, they're using this space to, okay, fill this particular void, okay? So space between sets the first element here, whichever in this line, okay, to the flex, to the main start, this is main end, and anything in between will be evenly spaced. So I can go and say space around, okay? So in the space around, as I said, a little bit of half of it normally, okay, the half of it. So this, the half of this space is used here and half is used here. So this is also using half. So they are kind of, they are having some kind of a fixed margin that is dependent on your current size. So you're gonna have half of it, so half space here, and then another half space here and half space here. I can go and say space evenly. And if I do space evenly, then this space and this space is equal. Okay, so we have these different elements here, right? Okay, good. So space evenly, we tried out all that stuff, right? So now what else we have? Okay, let's go and explore that. So we can align our items across the main axis. But how about aligning items across the cross axis, over the cross axis, okay? So in this case, we have two choices. The first choice is we want, if our flex wrap is set to no wrap, then obviously we're not going to have multiple lines of items. We're going to have only one line of item, okay? So if it is set to, if our flex wrap is set to no wrap, then we can do following things with our items. We can either set them to the start, or we can set them to the end, or we can even stretch them to the full width of our screen. So let's go and try this out. Let's go and try this out. So let me go and make my flex container height to something, let's say 200 pixels. So this is the height of my flex container. Right, let me go and make it 500 for no reason. And then I go and say no wrap. So if the flex wrap is set to no wrap, then I can use align items. And align items is a property which aligns the items over the cross axis, not the main axis, the cross axis. And I can say flex end, for example, right? If I do so, then I'm going to see all my boxes at the bottom, right? This is the bottom of my box. Let me go and give a border to it so you can go and see that. Okay, say go and make it gray. So you're going to see this is the border, right, of the entire flex container, and these are the items. So I can go and put them into the all of these items. You can put them into the bottom. Okay, this way. Or I can go and put them to the start, no problem. And they will be at the top, right? So what I can do, I can go and stretch them. So if I stretch them, they have the height. So if I go and take away the height, and they will be stretched. Okay, so you can see they go and take the full width of this particular box, right? So good. So I can go and put them in anywhere I want. Okay, I can go and put them into the center as well. Let me go and put them into the center, and they are in the center of this entire container. I can put them into the center. I can stretch them. I can put them to the top or bottom. Okay, so I'm not using words top and bottom. Why? Because I can change the direction of my main axis. Look how it will change if I go and change it to row reverse. So the direction is now opposite, remember? Now these guys, will be on the flex end here, right? Okay, so you can see that these items are ordered in a different way, right? So you remember row reverse is in an opposite, in this direction, right? So it goes from right to left. So I can go and say flex start, for example, and it goes to the top, right? So, or I can go and choose, for example, column. If I go and change the direction and it will be a column. So column means, okay, from top to the bottom, right? So this is the direction of my main axis. Then, okay, I will have, okay, like this. Now I can go and change everything like this. So it will, yeah, if I don't have the width here, by the way, it will kind of stretch this way as well. So again, it depends on your direction, okay? So if I go and do this, this is just the direction, okay? Okay, so let's continue then. So, okay, this is align items, but what if the flex wrap is set to wrap or wrap reverse? In this case, we can have multiple lines of items, and we can decide how we would like to deal with them. So in this case, we'll have to go and use align content, not align items. And we can go and arrange the content in this way. We can put it into the top or bottom, or we can even stretch the height of these items. Again, if the main axis is row, but again, everything changes if we go and change the direction of the main axis. Flex between a space between will put some space between these lines, okay, or space around puts some even space between these lines, okay. So you can see that I've got different values here. I can also have flex items, okay, and specify different values to these flex items. For example, I can go and, so here these are the numbers, right? So I can go and specify the order. So I can go and say, for this one, I would like to have the order of, let's say, 11. So if I say the order of 11, then, okay, by default, everyone's order is, okay, 0, or sorry, 1. So if the orders are equal, then they will be just aligned according to the way how they are written here. But you can go and change the order. So for example, if I go and say, even I can go and say 2, doesn't matter. If I go and do this, I'm going to see this one at the end. It will not be here because the order for these guys are set to 1. Okay, 2 is less than 1. Sorry, 2 is greater than 1, so it appears at the end. So, okay, I can go and change the order as well by just simply modifying the style here. So I can go and say 3, okay, and now it will be 1, 2 here, okay, and everything else will be in front because their default order is equal to 1. Okay, so I can also use the grow and shrink properties. So the grow and shrink property is kind of the proportions at which these, this boxes will occupy the space. Okay, so if we do not specify the width of these boxes. Okay, so yeah, let's make it, let's make this elements here, right? We can see these elements. Let's make it like this. We can go and get rid of these 2 elements. And now we got 2 items. And I mean, the width is already given here. Let's get rid of this width. Okay, so if we go and do this, the width is not set, so they will go and use their default width here. But what if I want is, okay, I would like to, distribute the available width to these blocks, okay, evenly. What should I do? So I have to use the flex item property. So far we've been using the properties for the flex container. So now order and then these are the other properties like flex grow can be specified, okay, to indicate how I'm going to distribute the available horizontal space among these flex items. So if I want to distribute them evenly, I have to say 1, 1. So if I do so, now the space here will be distributed evenly, okay? So I can go and do that here. If I go and change it to, okay, 2 to 1, so then it will be split into three parts, and 2 will be given here, 1 will be given here. So you can see, you can go and play with this, okay, with the width, and then you can see that, okay, you can go and split this flex items, okay, in this way, right? So you can change their proportions according to the available space you have. Okay, so you can go and say flex grow, for example, flex. You can go and give like a lot of space here, but you can go and say flex shrink as well. Shrink is the minimum proportion that you would like to hold for that particular element, and this is sort of the maximum proportion that you would like to give here, right? So when you shrink, so you want these proportions to hold, right? So if you do this, so now you got, okay, you got this one, so you got enough, let's say, space, but here, okay, you can see that now, okay, both of that can be, okay, shrinked and set to this color. So you can go and use these properties to kind of distribute the available horizontal space, or not necessarily horizontal space, but an available space over the main axis, okay, using the flex item properties like flex grow. Okay, there's another one called align item. The align item, okay, sorry, align self. So you can go and choose, for each item, you can choose its own alignment over the cross axis. So I can say align self, and I can say flex, say start. So if I do this, so now the second element will choose to appear here, and this one it starts to appear here. So I can go and select, okay, where this particular element will sit for me. So this is in the center, and this is using this particular property. Okay, so I hope this is a good kind of introduction to this flex layout. So the next layout is called a float layout. In a float layout, we are working with a different environment. So this float layout is commonly used. Okay, so flex layout, you can go and use this flex layout to define the main layout of your page, right? So you can go and create a panel, and you can go and create the main body area. So by using these properties, and we're going to do this in the lab, right? So the float layout, on the other hand, is something when you're going to use when you're arranging, when you're aligning the inline elements along with block elements together. Okay, so for example, what you want to show is you would like to show this image. You got an image, thumbnail image, and you would like to show this image like not as an inline element, but maybe, okay, on the right hand of your, okay, of your text. So how can we go and achieve this? So we can achieve it using the float property. Okay, so what the float property will do? The float property will convert your element. It will just put your element into one level up your document flow. So you can like use the naming here as well. So float means that it makes your elements as if they are floating. So imagine that this element, whenever you apply the float, it becomes some sort of a balloon, okay? So initially it was like, let's say it was glued to your document, like this text is glued to the document. The image was also an element that was glued to the document. Now, if you convert it into a float using this float property, you have to provide a value like right or left. What you're in fact doing is you're converting it in some sort of a balloon. Okay, let me go and draw this balloon for you. Okay, so So imagine like this is your document, and your document contains a lot of blocks, and they are following their natural order, right? So this is, let's say, H1, this is H2, and this could be div as well, anything like that, right? And image, you can also wrap it with some div or with paragraph, whatever. You can make it block as well. It doesn't matter, okay? The point is they are following their natural path. If it's an inline element, it's following horizontally. If it's a block element, that's following the vertical, right? So when you convert that element into a float, and that's how you're going to convert it, you have to say float and then give either right or left. What you're going to do is you will, let's say, take this particular element out, okay? You pull it out from this flow, and then imagine that this is some sort of a balloon, okay? And then right means you tie up this balloon to the right side. Left means you tie it up to the left hand, okay? So this means that this element will be floating on, let's say, on this float. It will have its shadow, and its shadow will be still blocking certain elements. These elements will not go up, okay? But still, it will be kind of like a float, and it will be floating and hanging here. You can tie it up either to the right hand or to the left hand. That's why it takes two values, okay? So that is how you can deal with these elements. You can convert them into small balloons and then tie them up into either side of your window like this. Wherever you pull them off, they will be tied to that particular location. Okay, so let me give you a quick example. So when I go and change div, and the div thing is the sidebar could be, the sidebar could be some element with float equal to right. Okay, so what it will do is it will take this element from its natural position and then set it to the corresponding place. So let me go and try this out here in this example. So I got a lot of divs here, right? So let me go and create one floating div. Let me call this div as sidebar, and I can give a max width to it. Let's go and make it 400 pixels. Okay, maybe 300 pixels. And let's go and give a border to it. So 2 pixels, let's say make it dashed, and I make it green. Okay. So we got a border. Sorry, we got a border. And what else? Let's go and give some margin as well. And the margin is going to be, let's say, 10 pixels. And padding also 10 pixels. Yeah. So now I'll go and, let's say, deliberately put it in between this sidebar. So I got a sidebar, and let me go and put a lot of leaves with some text, some random text, or let's say item, this one, and I want 10 here, like this. Okay, so I want to put this unordered list within this sidebar. Okay, let me see the original version of my document. So here we go. Right, it's here. It's just the margin doesn't matter. I didn't set the margin to auto. That's to auto. It's just 10 pixels. That's why it's appearing here. No problem. Okay, that's right. Yeah. So now you can see that this is following the same. Okay, let me go and make the margin auto anyway. So you want to see that in the same flow. So you can see that this is kind of appearing here, and it's following the same path, like vertical direction, right? So now if I go and apply to this green box, if I go and apply this green box, let me put some heading here, my items, something like that. If this green box, okay, if I apply float into this particular box, okay, what I will do is I'll just pull it away from this its original flow like a balloon. Okay, it will pop out from this flow, and then I can tie it either here or here. Okay, I can tie it here, so it will be floating. All these other blocks will continue their flow. Okay, so let me go and do this. Let's go and say float right. If I do this, you can see that now it's pulled out and then it's placed into this particular location. Okay, so now yeah, now I can, because I set the max back width, if I go and set the actual size, let me go and say the width as well, say 300 pixels. I can go and set the concrete width, then it will be like this. You can see that it is just hanging on top of the normal flow of divs. I just pulled it away and then tied it up here. Got it? So now I can have, let's say, okay, something that is floating on top of my normal flow. Yeah. So let's go and do some experiment here. So why people need floating? Okay, by the way, why do we need it? Let me go and show you that. Imagine that we have an image. This image, right? So now what I want is I would like this image to be on the right hand of my, let me go and put this image here anyway. I want it to be, let me get rid of this. Yeah, let me get rid of this thing for now. So now what I want is I want this image to be on the right hand of my text, right? So what should I do? Okay, so normally, currently, what I have is this image here. Yeah, so it's in the center. But now what I want is I want it like a thumbnail here. Okay, and then I want entire text to be surrounding this image. What should I do in order to make it like this? Okay, so let's go and try it out with the float, to make it with the float. So let me go and get rid of this background. It's irritating me. Okay, so and make it 10 pixels, 10 pixels here. Now I can, okay, remember this div is, okay, within this block. So it will be tied to the side, to the place where this block ends. So if I go and say float right, then this block will be taken away from its original flow and it will be tied to the end of this particular block. And now you see that this is kind of, okay, on the right hand, even though this is just an image and, okay, it has this margin. So I can go and get rid of this margin. I can go and put some border. Not get rid of this margin. Let's go and put some border here. And I can say 2 pixels solid black. And here we go. We have this image. Okay, it's like a post stamp or something. I can go and continue this text if I want to. And more text. And if I do so, we can see that this text kind of wraps this image around. Okay, so that's how I can go and create nice and cool looking thumbnails, okay, in my text. So let me go and get rid of this text align center. So, and now it looks kind of clean to me, right? So that's how can I place and use float to put the images, okay, or some block elements, okay, within the text, okay, and then I want my text to be nicely like going through this text, okay. But previously people used float as well to do the layouts to this through the different blocks. Okay, nowadays people use Flexbox, and they don't use float for doing the layout. But anyway, I'm going to show you how you can do exactly the same things using float as well here. So let me go and do some experiment here. Okay, so let me go and try that. So this is an example for floating boxes. So you can see it is behaving similar way as we showed with the flag boxes, right? So what's happening here? So I specified a floating box, right? This is just a div, and it has a width, it has a height, it has margin, it has the border, the one that one. But I also set float to left. So what it is doing, it's taking away this div from its natural flow from top to the bottom, and then tying it up to the left bar. And it's also doing the same for the next, okay, the next box. So whenever this guy wants to tie to this bar, okay, the balloon, okay, it is already occupied by this balloon, so it goes and ties it up to this side of the balloon, and so forth. Every item will be kind of chained together like this. So in this way, we can go and arrange our block items, okay, in this like a chain-like form. This is sort of a balloons that are flying, that are connected to each other, and they are flying, they're hovering on top of the, okay, standard divs. Okay, that's why they're kind of floating, okay, like this. Okay, so if I go and change it to right, then everything will be tied to this bar, okay? And you can see it is kind of mimicking the same way I would go and arrange my boxes like this, okay? So this is kind of something that you can go and use to arrange your different div elements, okay, using float as well. So, but most of the times you can achieve the same effect using flex boxes. So I really recommend you using flex boxes if you don't have a particular need for float. Okay, float has certain things that you would like to clarify. For example, you don't want, let's say you're starting a new section here, and you don't want it to be part of that particular paragraph. So how are you going to go and achieve this? For example, I had this problem here. So let me go and revive this sidebar. So remember, the sidebar has the width and everything. So I got my sidebar. Now look, my sidebar and this thing is getting interfering each other, okay? So I don't want them to interfere with each other. At least I want this particular block to start from the bottom. So I want this block to veer from the shadow of this floating, okay, box. So how can I make this particular bar, or any bar, okay, in this case, any box, not to interfere with even with the shadow of this block? So how can I go and do this? I can go and use the clear property, okay? So I can say clear, let's say which part, okay, right has to be clear. And now you can see, because we have a floating box at the element, this box, or even this box, is avoiding interfering with this element, okay? So I can make sure that, okay, that my right hand is clear. I don't see any shadow of this guy too. Okay, if I don't see the shadow, okay, I can go and place it here like this. I could go and work this way too. Okay, so what else? Yeah, so I can use either left or right or none to specify that I would like to kind of clear away these paragraphs. I don't want them to be in the same position. Okay, so there's another problem we have. Okay, the problem is when the size of the image actually exceeds the border of the text. So, for example, let me say that this image box is has a size, right? It doesn't have a size. Okay, let me go and set its size. Or let's make it this way. Or let me go and let me go and change the height in this one. Let's go and get, we don't have the height of this one. This is the image box, So, okay, so let's go and try this thing. So let me get rid of this sidebar for now, because it will be making a lot of noise here. So let me go and, okay, got an image box here. Okay, let me go and increase the height of this image box. So let's go and increase it to, I don't know, 300 pixels. Okay, so the height of this image box is now 300 pixels. Right, so this is the height of this image box. I can see, again, it exceeds the size of the kind of container in which this box is floating. Okay, this is the block container, remember, and we created. So where is that? Yeah, we created this image box within this block container. So now this image box has, its size, its height maybe, is exceeding. And when it exceeds, it just goes through, okay? It goes through the region of the box. This box doesn't care because, this is floating and it's not pushing the boundaries of this border, okay? It's not pushing it because this guy is floating and it's just happening to be like this. This is just one level up this guy, right? Okay, so how can we force the container box to fit the size of the floating elements as well? Okay, so in order to do this, we need to go and set the container block, this block, following property. We have to say overflow hidden. Okay, if we go and say overflow hidden, then it will go and accommodate all of its floating elements as well. So now you can see that, these borders are now drawn around, the floating elements as well. So now it will take into account the floating elements, and then it will increase the height of this element, even for the size of the floating element. Okay, so this way it will kind of look neat for you. Okay. Okay, so this is one thing. Yeah, we can go and use the overflow hidden, and then it will accommodate the size of the floating element. The container E will accommodate the size of the floating element. Okay, we can use overflow for other purposes as well. For example, if we set it to auto, okay, and if the element exceeds the size, it will go and show you a scroll bar, okay, automatically. Or you can go and use float again to make lines to be aligned this way. We already saw this in a given example. So we also have positioning. So positioning, I'll just fly through that. I'm not going to show you examples. Positioning helps you to position elements, using some coordinate system. Okay, so there are 4 different ways you can position things. Okay, the default positioning is the natural flow of your elements. So block elements are flowing in a vertical direction, inline are flowing in a horizontal direction. That's basically the default. Static one is the default. But you can go and change it to any of these values, relative, absolute, or fixed. Okay, so for example, if you change it to the relative, then it is the offset from its current regular position. Okay, if it follows its natural position, right? It has it kind of depends on where it is, and then it just, if it's a vertical, then just placed into that position. For example, if I go and open this page, okay, this block or even this block, this is its natural position. I can go and move it, okay, let's say up or down or left or right, okay, relative to its current position. Okay, how can I go and do this? For example, let me do it here. I'll select, let's say this block, maybe this block. Let me go and select this block, and then let me go and say position relative, and I'll say top, and top is the 5 pixels. And as you can see, it is doing this. It's moving a little bit here, or I can use the left. And if I do this, you can see it's moved 5 pixels to the left, right? I can go and, I can go and make it 50 pixels, and it's moved slightly to the right. Okay, so from its original position, from its referential current position, I can use top, left, bottom, and right. Okay, so I can use these values to change the position of that element. Okay, so there is an absolute one as well. So absolute means, okay, absolute to the container. I can go and change it to absolute. Absolute means in relation to the container it uses. So this is, okay, so this is what is the container for this block? Okay, the body is the container for this block. So it is with respect to the body itself. Okay, so let me go and don't use this thing here. Let me go and put it back to the right location. What about this guy? This sum text, this line, this box here, this box is the red box. Okay, so I can go and say positioning absolute, and now you can see, oops, positioning absolute. Now you can see that this particular box is positioned according to, in this position to the top left corner. So it is positioned according to the location of its container element. Okay, this is the container element. This box is the container element, and I can go and position it like this. I can go and say top, I don't know, top, let's say 50 pixels, and it will be in relation to that one. Okay, so like this. So, and if I go and scroll this page, so let me go and scroll it. Okay, it will scroll with this element too. So, okay, with respect to this element, it will scroll with respect to this element. Okay, but if I go and change it to fixed, then it will be with relation to the screen itself. And let me go and make it, I don't know, 5 pixels. Now it doesn't matter, it is for the screen. So even if I scroll it, it still sits in the screen. Okay, you can see it just hangs there. Okay, it doesn't go anywhere. Even if I scroll it, I'm scrolling this text and it's just hanging here. So, and this is using a fixed positioning. Okay, so I can go and use different positioning for different purposes. Okay, for something like a sliding menu or something that sits on top of my navigation bar and so forth. I can go and do that using these types of positioning. Okay, so you can see different examples here. So what is the summary? The summary is how we're going to go and build the design of our web page layout. The first thing is we always need to go and start from wireframing. So wireframing is just finding different blocks, okay, and the sub-blocks and the sub-blocks of our design, and then constructing, writing divs according to those blocks that we specified in the design. Okay, and we go and specify different classes that would describe these blocks. Okay, that's what we normally do. So we convert these blocks into divs and spans and everything, right? So that is called, okay, you have to convert your wireframe to HTML. And once you have the right structure, the semantically correct, hierarchically correct structure, then you can start writing the CSS. So the first thing you need to do is you can try to align things, okay, using simple CSS properties like text align, vertical align, or margin. Okay, so margin auto, you remember it goes and centers the block in horizontally. For most of your layout, like maybe 80% of your layout, you're going to use Flexbox. So Flexbox goes and creates panels and then the items that you do, right? If you have a complicated or sophisticated layout, okay, then you can go and reference the grid. I didn't cover the grid here yet, but I'll give you the reference for that. There is another type of creating layouts using, okay, web pages. And for float, okay, if you want to arrange block and inline elements together, okay, you want to put some, okay, block element around inline elements, okay, then you're going to go and perhaps use the float. Okay, nowadays float is very, okay, used very, very rarely, but you can still use float. Float has very cool features, especially when you're working with blocks and inline elements together, because the text is kind of, it surrounds that nicely surrounds that block. Okay, you cannot do this with the Flexbox, or you cannot do it with the grid, but you can do it with the float. Positioning is, okay, something that you need when you need something like hovering or hanging menus or something, or anything fancy you would want to move your block into some weird location. Okay, so in this case you might go and need positioning. So this is kind of the order. Most of the time try to use the simple properties like this and then use the Flexbox. If you go and do these two things, then perhaps 95% of the times you can go and create the layout of your page. Maybe 5% for the float. Grid is okay, you can go and grid is a very powerful layout tool. I'm not going to cover this in this lecture, but it is something that you can go and build sophisticated layouts using grid. Positioning is just for something fancy. After finishing your layout, make sure that you can test it on multiple different screens and your browser and your device, something like that. So these are additional materials. If you want to learn more about grids, you can just follow this URL and learn about grid materials. You can go and check these two URLs. This is very important, how to build your web design, okay, in 4 minutes. So it basically mentions the important principles of design here. And if you want to know more about Flexboxes, you can go and follow this particular URL. Thank you very much.